Today I'm going to show you guys how to make a halter neck princess that Bustier. I have other videos on how to cut, sew, iron, pad princess that Bustier, and even attach your breast cup to your princess that Bustier. Definitely check the description box for that playlist of all those videos. You're going to really learn a whole lot. So without further ado, if you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button down below. My name is Silem, very pleased to meet you. Let's get right into the video.
Oh, hey, I didn't see you there.
So I've already gone ahead to gum my lining with soft gum, and then I just folded both of them for the front piece and the back piece, and I placed the front piece on top of the back piece. But as you can see at the fold, the back piece is slightly longer than the front piece. That's because of the zipper allowance. Now I just drew a baseline. Now I'm marking the bust point, under bust, and half length respectively, and now I'm just extending those lines basically. Now I'm marking 4.5 inches. Now that is the distance between my nipple to nipple, and the distance is actually 8 inches, but I added 1 inch to that, making it 9 inches, and then half of that is 4.5 inches. Now I'm just marking my shoulder, and then I'm adding 2 inches allowance. Now I'm connecting the first allowance to the bust point and the second allowance to the same bust point. Now I'm marking 2 inches from the under bust downwards. Now this 2 inches is simply because I am not too busty. My bust is 35 inches. So if you're working with someone that has a very big bust, you can use 2.5 inches basically. And now I just drew a curve to connect those 2 points. Now I'm replicating all those lines I had marked on my on the front. I'm replicating them on the back piece, and now I'm just cutting along that half length line rather. And now I'm just cutting along those lines as well. And now I'm just going to set that aside, and then I'm replicating all the lines that I had marked on the front piece. I'm replicating them on the back piece. So the baseline, the zipper line, the nipple to nipple line, and all that. But now remember that the 2 inches I had marked for the front stopped at the under bust, but for the back it stops at the bust points. That's the major difference between the front and the back. And now after putting my shoulder allowances, the first allowance, there'll be a line connecting that first allowance to the bust point, and the second allowance will be connected to that 2 inches line I had previously marked. Now moving on to my sewing machine, I'm just going to place the front pieces right sides facing, and then I'm just going to sew it. I'm going to sew them together. And now because the curved one is on top of the one that's a bit straight, I'm just curving or I'm just moving the curved one, which is the one at the top, to match the one at the bottom as I sew along. And this is what it looks like. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the back piece. I'm going to place them right sides facing, and then I'm just going to sew it. Also, this is what it looks like as well. Now I'm just going to iron both of them flat, and I'm going to place the front piece on top of the back piece. iron that as well. I'm just taking a piece of fabric or pieces of fabric and just putting it under the bust, where the bust point is, just so that I have that structure for the breast. Now placing the under bust, making sure that everything is nice and aligned, and now I'm marking the armhole line, which is 8 inches. Now I just divided my bust measurement by 4. I'm marking that and I'm adding 2 inches allowance. I divided my shape measurement by 4, place it on the under bust, and then I added 2 inches allowance to that. Now I'm just connecting those lines. Now placing my under bust again, just to make sure that everything is nice and neat, I'm just marking the 0 mark there. And now I'm marking 2 inches downwards for the front and 1.5 inches for the back. That'll be the depth of my neck, basically, because this is going to be a halter neck. It has to be very high. And now the width, that's how narrow I want the halter neck to be. I took about 3 inches. Now I changed my mind. I tried to make the depth of the back of the front 2.5 inches and not 2 inches. And I'm just connecting that with the armhole line. So that's basically how to make a halter neck. You just have to connect your armhole with the neck, but make it very narrow, not as much as you're cutting a shoulder, because this one, there's no shoulder for a halter neck. A halter neck top has no shoulder, so just bear that in mind. Now for the back has to be higher than the front, so I just added about 1/2 inch allowance to what the front neck depth was, and that's what I use for the back. And I'm just trimming both of them, and then I also cut out the zipper allowance. And after loosening them, this is what my back looks like, and this is what my front looks like. Now moving on, I'm just going to take the back pieces and then I'm just going to sew them together. 2 pieces of the back. Remember we have 4 pieces of the back, so I took 2 pieces of the back and then I'm sewing them together, right sides facing. Now this is what the other 2 pieces of the back look like after I've sewn them. Now taking one side front piece and the center front piece, I'm just sewing them together. And this is what that looks like. I'm going to take the other side front piece and then sew it to the other side of the center front piece. Now for this side, I'm going to, once I get to the under bust, I'm going to stop and then use my fingers to align both pieces together so I can start at the top to sew downwards. Now the reason why I do this is because if you try to do this like from the bottom all the way to the top, you're not going to get it right. I don't know why it happens like that, but with experience and watching other people sew, I know that you're not going to get it right if you try to go from the bottom all the way to the top, and that's for the right side. So once you get to the under bust, you stop there and then start from the top to sew downwards. Now I'm doing the same thing for my fabric. I used the lining pieces that I had cut out to as a pattern to cut my front pieces. So I'm just doing the same thing I had done with the lining. I sewed the back pieces together and now I'm sewing the front pieces together. So basically you want to move the top one, which is the curved one, to match with the bottom one as you're sewing. Try to also maintain the same allowance all the way through so that it looks neat and put together. Now like I said, for the right side, once you get to the under bust, you stop there, tack that point, take it out, use your fingers to align it all the way to the top, and then start from the top to sew downwards. Now if you are a tailor or you make clothes and you know how to make your princess that bustier very well, and you've tried to make the right side of the princess that bustier, you try to make the right side from the bottom all the way to the top, and you are good at doing it that way, let me know. Please give me some tips. I'm also learning. Give me some tips down in the comment section below, or do you do it the way I do it? Just let me know. So I'm just adding a breast cup to the bustier. I already have a video on this, so if you want to see that video, then check my previous video or check the link in the description box. I'm going to leave it there. Now I've done the same thing. Now I'm just placing my lining and my fabric together, the front pieces, and then I'm just sewing the sides. So that's where the neck connects with the armhole. Now once I've sewn that, I'm going to open that up, make sure that the allowance is facing the lining, and then I'm just going to top stitch, closing that up again. I'm going to do the same thing for the other side, and I've done that. Now I'm just closing up the sides. And that's both sides closed. Now I'm just going to move on to the back piece. I'm also going to close that line that connects the neck with the armhole. Going to open that up and top stitch the allowance and make sure that it's facing the lining. Closing that up, I'm just going to sew the sides. This is the zipper allowance I'm sewing now. I'm also going to sew the other side as well, and that's it done. So I'm just going to turn this to the right side, and this is what it looks like. This is what the back looks like basically. Going to go ahead and give it a very good iron. Now for the two back pieces, I'm just going to place them right sides facing, and I'm just going to close the zipper allowance. This is temporal obviously because I'm going to attach a zipper later, but just so that the pieces are put together when I'm shaping them. Now moving on to the halter neck, I'm taking about 19 inches, a piece of fabric that's 19 inches, both the main fabric and the lining. And the width of their width is actually 1.5 inches. So I'm just sewing them together right sides facing. Now if you are using a fabric that is not a bit rough, you can actually just take a piece of fabric about 4 inches and fold it and then sew it. The reason why I'm using a lining with this is because you know how sequence fabrics are, they are a bit itchy when they are on the skin. So I had to use a lining. Now after sewing the lining and the sequence together, I'm just turning them to the right side, and then I gave it a good iron, and this is what it looks like. I'm just folding it so I can get the midpoint, and then I'm just marking that midpoint. And then opening that up, this is what we have. I'm also folding the front part of the fabric and also marking the midpoint. Now I'm placing both midpoints together. I want to weave that opening at the front piece, so I'm just sewing the choker neck together with the front piece. I started from the center to the other side, and I started from the other side to the center. I do that so that it doesn't move when I try to start from one end to the other. Now I'm just going to fold my front piece so that I can mark my measurements, my actual measurements this time. So I mark my bust measurements and my under bust measurements. Remember that when we marked it before, we had added 2 inches allowance. So now I'm marking the actual measurements so that it's fitted. Now I'm just folding it again to the other side, and then I'm hitting the fabric so that the chalk mark that I had marked in one side is replicated at the other side. And then I'm just, making that line obvious. Now I'm placing the right side, I'm placing the front piece and the back pieces together, right sides facing, and I'm just sewing along those lines I had marked, or joining them along those lines I had marked. And then this is what it looks like. Now I'm going to flip this to the back. We already know the center point of the back because of the zipper, so I'm just going to join the rest of the choker neckline to the back piece. And yeah, this is what it looks like basically. Very simple, very easy to make. I'm going to go ahead and put a zipper at the back, and I'm going to connect it with the bottom part of my dress. And this is what it looks like, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and share it with your friends or anyone that is into sewing and would want to learn this. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you so much. I'll see you in my next one. Bye.